Hi, I'm Jon Bernstein, Arms Armor Curator for the National Museum of the Marine Corps. Today we're going to talk about the Sherman tank in Marine Corps service, and I'm standing in front of our Sherman here in the World War II gallery. Now this Sherman depicts an M4A2 from the 1st Tank Battalion as it would have appeared on Peleliu in September of 1944. Now right around the same time that the 1st Tank Battalion was fighting on Peleliu, the 5th Tank Battalion was standing up in Southern California and receiving brand new M4A3s. The M4A3 is what this video is going to focus on.
A recent discovery revealed that the museum does have a World War II combat veteran Sherman in the collection.
So when I climbed up on top of the tank in our collection back in the summer of 2023, I began to see all of these little weld-scarred dots all over the top of the turret, on the commander's cupola, on the gunner's periscope shroud, on the ventilator, and on the loader's hatch. And it became very apparent that that's where 10-penny nails had been welded on to protect against Type 99 mines sticking to the turret roof. Marine tank crews came in contact with several Japanese weapons that posed a significant threat to the tank. One of those weapons was the Japanese Type 99 anti-tank mine. This was a magnetic mine, just a little bit bigger than a hockey puck, but it was designed to stick to the armor of a tank and focus the detonation of the explosives into the tank's armor. One of these Type 99 mines could penetrate about 3/4 of an inch. If you stack two of them, you can get almost 1.5 inches of armor penetration from a very small weapon. So one of the self-protection measures that Marine tankers started to come up with was adding wooden planking to the sides of their tank hulls. By late 1944, the 4th and 5th Tank Battalions had this down to a science. And the modifications they made to their tanks really were unique, even down to the company level. Now, those weld scars from the nails were very, very specific to the 5th Tank Battalion. So right away we knew this was a 5th Tank Battalion tank. But in the 5th Tank Battalion, the 3 line companies, A, B, and C company, had specific modifications. So we were able to narrow it down from that. A company had nails welded both on the turret roofs and on their driver's hatches. B company didn't have nails. They used rebar frames with chicken wire and wire mesh over their turret hatches. Charlie company used both nails on the turret roof and then rebar frames on their driver's hatches. So looking at this tank, it was clear that there were no nail weld scars on the driver's hatches. There were remnants of what looked like rebar frames. So we knew from that this was actually a C company tank. While comparing photos of Charlie company tanks on Iwo Jima to photos of our tank as it currently sits out at Pima, it became very clear that there were some noticeable similarities. There were a lot of things that were matching up between the frontal photo that we have of the tank now and one particular shot that was taken on 1 March 1945, just short of Nishi Ridge. And one of the things that was pointed out to me is the similarity in the brush guard, which was not standard. Typically when a Sherman comes off the production line, the brush guard in front of the siren is a loop of strip steel with 2 cross pieces in the center. Those cross pieces were made of basically inch-wide steel, mounted edge forward, so it was a very thin profile. The brush guard on our Sherman didn't have that. It had 3 weld scars where the original one was, and then it clearly had a replacement. Now this one is a hoop of strip steel, and the cross pieces were mounted flat face forward. We've never seen any other Sherman tank with a brush guard like this before, and lo and behold, the photo of the Sherman on 1 March 45 had the same exact brush guard. So this is clearly the same tank. And in fact, if you look at the dents in the fender, they match up as well. What we needed to do next was determine the identity of this tank. From the sequence of photos, we know that it was part of 3rd Platoon, And it was the platoon leader's tank because it had a second radio antenna on it, which would make it a command tank. From there, it was just a matter of uncovering original paint markings on the tank that we had a feeling were still there. So after a number of hours of slowly but surely excavating the layers of paint on the left flank of the tank, we were able to uncover the name Lucky. Now we know that 3rd Platoon, the 3 tanks, were named Genie, Killer, and Lucky. We know that Genie was Platoon Sergeant Robert McIntyre's tank, fell into a bunker on March 1st, and we knew that Lucky was Lieutenant Leonard Blake's tank. And sure enough, we were able to uncover the name Lucky on both sides of the tank and the Charlie Company Diamond tactical identifier on both sides as well. When we uncovered the name Lucky, we realized that the font and style that it was written in, it was painted in, was identical to the font seen in period footage of the tank Horrible Hank, which belonged to the XO of A Company. So we know that the same artist who painted the name on Lucky painted it on Horrible Hank as well. So that was another piece that helped us confirm the identity of this tank. The sequence of photos uncovered at the National Archives documents a series of actions undertaken by Lieutenant Blake and his crew to rescue Sergeant Robert McIntyre's tank crew, who had basically fallen down into a Japanese bunker and their tank couldn't extract. So Lieutenant Blake and Corporal Wilhite, his driver, left their tank. They crawled out from the bottom hatch and proceeded across the 75 yards or so to Platoon Sergeant McIntyre's tank to basically rescue the trapped crew, to make sure that Japanese infantry wasn't able to swarm and penetrate their tank and of course knock the tank out. Blake and Wilhite proceeded across the open ground, secured the tank, got Platoon Sergeant McIntyre and his crew out, and were able to safely extract them and then go back to their tank and continue the mission. For his leadership and intrepidity, Lieutenant Blake was awarded the Silver Star for his actions. Corporal Wilhite was awarded the Bronze Star. This was sort of the major action that our tank was involved in, although it was in combat pretty much from 19 February through about 26 March of 1945. After Iwo Jima, the 4th and 5th Tank Battalions went back to Hawaii, turned in their tanks for depot level maintenance, and prepared for the next operation. One of the major after-action reports from all 3 tank battalions that fought on Iwo Jima, and from the tank battalions that would fight on Okinawa just a few months later, was that they needed more flame tanks. Iwo Jima was the testing ground for a new main armament flame tank known as the CBH-1, and there were 4 assigned to the 5th Tank Battalion, and they performed exceptionally well. In fact, during the 1 March incident, the flame tank Torch was attached to 3rd Platoon. But the Marine Corps wanted more, and so in the summer of 1945, 72 tanks were pulled from existing stocks and from new stocks coming into Hawaii to be converted into a new generation of flamethrower tank. Instead of deleting the main armament, putting the flamethrower in the gun tube, the new CBH-5 version left the main armament, the main gun there, and inserted the flamethrower through the gunner's optical sight. So basically formed it coaxially with the main gun. So it kind of looked a little weird. It had 2 main guns. It was actually a fairly efficient setup. What they did was they brought the tanks into depot, pulled the turrets out, removed about 60% of the ammo stowage racks. So instead of 100 rounds, they were limited to 40 rounds. But in place of those 60 rounds, they included up to 300 gallons worth of storage for napalm for the flame gun. The primary role of this tank would be as a flamethrower tank, and it would have the main armament as a backup for bunker busting. They started the conversion program in about July of 45, and Lucky was the 50th tank converted. So it had its ammo racks pulled and added in the new napalm tanks, which are situated just under the turret basket floor. The CBH-5s never saw combat in World War II. They were intended for the invasion of Japan. Unfortunately, Japan surrendered on 15 August 1945, and they were never put into combat use during World War II. By the end of World War II, these tanks were pretty much considered obsolete and were sort of left for training duties, and ultimately by 1955 all of the Shermans were out of Marine Corps service.